Hello there. Let me get that adjusted a little bit. Welcome to a virtual class presentation for ME200, Adolescent Psychology. And today we're going to look at Rites of Passage. As you can see on the screen, I've got a very short little PowerPoint that I slapped together here real quick to show you guys. I'm going to walk you through this and then let you get into doing some writing about this concept. Here we go. Definition, first of all. Rite of Passage is a ceremony that incorporates religious spiritual beliefs into a cultural recognition of adult status. The Rite of Passage, in essence, gives you adulthood. It transfers those adult responsibilities and those adult rights and privileges to the newest adults in the community. That's the purpose of the Rite of Passage. But it does it within this religious and spiritual context. So a sweet 16 is not a Rite of Passage. That's a birthday party, right? We get the distinction. I hope so. I'm going to go through 4 examples of Rites of Passage for you to consider and think about. The context of my examples, though, is not what happens today. It's more along the lines of how things used to be 500 years ago, let's say, 400 years ago, maybe 150 years ago, depending. So every culture has a rite of passage. Every culture has a way to take this information and transmit it to the next generation and to make the next generation adult. It is part of how culture is passed on. Let's keep going. Bar mitzvah. Probably the most widely known, I think, rite of passage. A bar mitzvah is a rite of passage for Jewish boys. There is one for girls also called a bat mitzvah, B-A-T instead of R, bat mitzvah. Anyway, this is done at age 13. There is ceremony and prayer and with the rabbi, and within that ceremony, ultimately the rabbi recognizes the adult status of the boy and introduces this new adult to the community. Well, this is a great accomplishment. So what do? You party, right? So you have a party. And that seems to be a theme amongst rites of passage. Let's keep going. Quinceanera. Quinceanera is a rite of passage for Hispanic Latina girls. It is done at age 15, hence the quince. That's 15 in Spanish, if you don't know. This rite of passage incorporates Catholic Mass and numerous traditional activities, and elements of it resemble a wedding. Frequently, a girl in her quinceanera will literally wear a wedding dress. And that's representational of the old school traditional meaning of a rite of passage. And that meaning is the father of the girl is presenting her as being available for marriage. What, at age 15? Yeah, remember, we're talking about 300, 400, 500 years ago. Available for marriage. Do 15-year-olds get married today? I hope not, but they do. In my time out in California, working at a middle school there that was 88% Hispanic, I was talking about this concept and how I represented it and used it in one of my classes, and was discussing this with a colleague in the office. And one of the secretaries in the office kind of got in on the conversation a little bit, and she said, they still do this. This is how it's done in Mexico, in remote villages far away from everything, where they really live a more traditional lifestyle. It might actually look more like 150 years ago than it does today. They still follow this, and 15-year-old girls, you're ready to get married. So that was fascinating to me. Of course, in my classes where I had 88%, 90% Hispanic students, they didn't know this, and that really kind of cracked me up. They didn't know that it wasn't just a party for 15-year-olds. It traditionally was the father presenting their daughter as available for marriage, and that freaked out a lot of the girls in class, of course. But then all the symbolism associated with that rite of passage really kicked in for them, and they got greater meaning out of those parties that they had attended long before. Um, of course, then once you have made that presentation, what do? You celebrate this new adult in the community and you party again. Let's go to the next one. Rite of Confirmation. Now, this is a rite of passage within the Catholic Church, and they may not exactly present it as that. Um, some interesting things. There's no specific age for this one. It could be done as young as 7 years old up to 17 or 18. Every individual church or parish uh, makes that decision on their own. Sometimes they all follow the diocese, the bishop's area for how to proceed with that. But every parish can decide on their own when they want to do the rite of passage. Most common around age 14, often tied to promoting from 8th grade. Very common to have it done sort of synchronized with 8th grade and promoting there. The ceremony itself is done as part of Catholic Mass, kind of like baptism is. In fact, the rite of baptism is done during Catholic Mass. So is this one, the rite of confirmation. The main part of the rite of confirmation is the priest essentially, maybe not literally, but essentially asking the question, do you want to be Catholic? Think about that for a second. Why would the priest ask this? Isn't it obvious? They've been going to church their whole life. They went through the classes to go through rite of confirmation. Why would the priest ask this question, do you want to be Catholic? Because the priest is recognizing them as an adult now. They are now an adult, and adults make up their own minds. They do what they want to do. They choose for themselves. This is not a matter of mommy and daddy telling them what to do anymore. So the priest will ask, do you want to be Catholic? Do you believe in all the things that we as Catholics believe in? And today, of course, if you're going through that process, you're not going to say no. You're going to say, yes, I do. I believe in all those things. And with that, one of the other things you do in rite of confirmation, or it was traditionally done, is you take on the name of a saint, and it sort of becomes a second middle name. So you get a new name here in the rite of confirmation. Most people don't actually use that middle name and make use of it, but it ceremoniously recognizes you are a new person inspired by one of these saints that was in touch with God, and that's your inspiration for adulthood. After that, the priest will introduce you to the church community as this new adult, this new Catholic believer within the church. And what do you do after that? You celebrate with a party, of course, a party again. Now, I'm going to go to the fourth example for you guys, and that is Vision Quest. And I have to tell you, I can't absolutely verify the accuracy of this information. This information was passed on to me by a Lakota elder almost 25 years ago now. It is what it is. After I present this, I'm going to share something else about that conversation that I thought was very interesting. So, Vision Quest, and that's kind of the Washichu name for it, I believe, but it's the rite of passage for Lakota boys. There is no set age, just like rite of confirmation. The medicine man, the religious leader, determines when it is time. And I mean, if the medicine man came up to you and said, "It's time," and you're a boy in that village, you know exactly what he's talking about. It's the day you've been waiting for some time, and you go. So, when told to go, the boy's going to leave, maybe with minimal water, but no food. And they're going to go out on the prairie and they're going to find themselves a nice tall hill and sit up on that hill and make a very, very, very small fire. And they're going to pray and they're going to fast and they're not going to sleep, as best they can anyway, for 4 days. I don't know that it's possible to not sleep for 4 days. Um, the point of all this, prayer with the fire, fasting, limited water, the goal is to have a vision. Well, of course, today they would say, well, of course you're going to start hallucinating. I mean, you're depriving yourself of sleep and food. Obviously, you're going to hallucinate. And I mentioned this to the elder. I said, don't they explain it away like that? And the elder says, well, yeah, this is how you get in touch with Takashala. So the goal is to be provided that vision of who you are to be as an adult. Who is the adult you? That's what you hope for in the vision. So 4 days. After 4 days, you return to the village and you pray with the medicine man. You share the visions that you have, and you pray with the medicine man to help interpret and understand what those visions mean. Based on that interpretation, a new name is given to this new adult in the community. In fact, the old name is never spoken again. The little boy that left the village 4 days earlier is dead. That little boy no longer exists. That little boy has gone from the earth. Now there is a new man in the village, and a new man needs a new name. Oh, a new name, kind of like rite of confirmation. So a new name is given based on the interpretation of the visions. And then that new adult is introduced to the village with that new name, and the village celebrates with, you guessed it, a party. A party. Now, these 4 rites of passage were used to give adult status to individuals. Were they truly adults? Were they truly treated like adult members of the community? There's a lot of academic debate about that. Probably not completely. Not completely. But I would venture to say they were a hell of a lot closer to being adult than boys or girls of the same age today. So, given that, you could make the argument they were essentially given adulthood and adult status back then through recognition within this ceremony. You have some writing to do. Let me switch over to that if I can. Do I have that here? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I think I'm just going to read it to you. I want you to define the traditional purpose of the rite of passage. Explain what it was about and why it was done. And not the way it's done today, the way it was done centuries ago. All right? Go old school with this. Do some thinking. Describe the rites of passage that I just outlined in your writing. And for each, give a description, briefly review the customs and meanings associated with it. Feel free to look these up and find other sources besides me just babbling along here in this video. Most importantly in your writing, what are the common characteristics between these rites of passage? What's common to them? And I really want you to think about that, because the Rite of Confirmation is basically a European Rite of Passage. It's European. And yet there are some striking similarities to the Lakota Rite of Passage of Vision Quest, at least as I presented it anyway. So dig deep, do some thinking, and find those similarities. And to me, it's pretty amazing that a culture from thousands of miles away in Europe has a rite of passage that has many similarities to a culture in the middle of North America hundreds of years ago. Pretty cool concept. And it says something about the nature of the rite of passage. All right, that's it. Good luck on your writing. I hope this was helpful in the explanations and gave you some ideas for you to write about. Plug in your own opinions about rite of passage and what you think it means today, right? All right, catch you later. Thank you for watching. I hope all is well for you. Bye.